Has this ever happened to you? A man sits across from a woman, and though the words on his lips are gentle, something in his posture betrays weakness. His shoulders curve inward, his gaze flutters when challenged, his tone bends toward appeasement. He is not cruel, he is not unkind, but he has surrendered the most vital part of himself, his center. In that silent exchange, she feels not safety, but hollowness, for she does not see in him the man who guards his own soul with discipline, but one who waits for her to define him. A Stoic man never trades his essence for approval. His silence, when chosen, is not the silence of fear, but of mastery. His speech, when offered, carries the weight of alignment between thought and deed. And so, there are words he will never utter, phrases that fracture integrity, statements that tether his worth to another's fleeting judgment. He knows that every syllable cast into the world becomes a thread in the tapestry of his being. To speak what betrays the inner citadel is to let the fortress crumble from within. The woman across from him may test, whether consciously or not. She may provoke, with impatience or subtle challenge, watching how he stands when the ground beneath seems unsteady. And in those moments, the average man seeks refuge in pleading, in promises born of desperation. But the Stoic man stands different. He knows that control over the self is the only true dominion. He understands that words which beg, justify, or self-diminish are chains forged by the ego's hunger. Such words never leave his mouth, for he has mastered the hunger that drives men to utter them. Consider how fragile power becomes when it is outsourced. The man who insists, "Please don't leave me, I can't live without you," does not confess love. He confesses dependence. To her ears, the tone is not devotion, but weight, not steadiness, but burden. The archetype of the dependent lover is not a figure of romance, but a shadow of arrested growth. He seeks to bind her through pity, yet unwittingly drives her away with the revelation of his own fragility. The Stoic man, by contrast, carries the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. What belongs to him cannot be stolen, and what leaves was never his to command. In this detachment lies strength, not cruelty. She feels it as the air of a man, rooted in something deeper than her validation. There is also the temptation of flattery emptied of substance, where words flow too easily. "You're everything to me. Without you, I am nothing." Such declarations may appear romantic, but beneath them lurks erasure of the self. A man who speaks them does not honor the woman. He dissolves before her, making himself an echo rather than a counterpart. Jung would call this the projection of the anima, man thrusting the idealized feminine onto a mortal frame, burdening her with the weight of his unfinished psyche. To a discerning woman, it is not an offering, but a demand, one that suffocates rather than liberates. The Stoic man never places such chains upon another. He has integrated his shadow, recognized the fullness within, and therefore approaches not with need, but with presence. Notice how stillness itself can be more eloquent than words. The untrained man scrambles to fill silence, fearing it as a void that will expose his lack. But the Stoic sits with silence as if it were a companion. He does not rush to prove, to appease, to convince, for he knows that in relationships, as in battle, the one who fears silence is the one already defeated. In his stillness, she perceives mystery, but also steadiness, a man who governs himself, who does not let unease dictate expression. And this draws her not through theatrics, but through resonance with the unspoken law of strength. There are also accusations disguised as confessions. "You're the reason I am like this." Without you, I'd be better. These words shift responsibility, projecting inner chaos onto the feminine. They are daggers of blame, meant to absolve the speaker of the burden of his own unfinished work. But no Stoic would commit this betrayal of the self. He knows that all power begins with ownership. To cast blame outward is to abandon the throne of sovereignty. The true man, disciplined in thought and deed, admits that his choices belong to him. His state of being is his to master. In this refusal to outsource responsibility lies the quiet majesty of self-command. Observe closely. The difference is not in vocabulary, but in alignment. A Stoic man could speak the simplest words, "I see you, I hear you," and yet they resound with weight because they are not spoken from hunger, but from wholeness. What he will not say are words that beg for worth, that surrender sovereignty, that cast the core of his being into another's hands. To love without losing oneself, to stand firm without cruelty. This is the paradox he embodies. Women sense it instinctively, that here is a man who will not collapse into them, but also will not wage war against them. He remains himself, inviolate, and in that unshakable center lies both allure and respect. The first thing Stoic men never say then is any phrase that betrays dependence, any utterance that places survival in the hands of another. Dependence masquerades as love, but tastes of desperation, and desperation is the slow erosion of respect. To choose silence over pleading, to let actions speak rather than clamor for assurance, this is the path of the timeless Stoic. The world may not always understand it, but the discerning soul recognizes it as strength. There is another phrase that never crosses the lips of a Stoic man, though it is one countless others have spoken. "I'll change who I am, if that's what you want." At first, it may sound noble, self-sacrifice for the sake of love. But beneath it lies erosion, a subtle betrayal of essence. For the man who reshapes his being to fit the desire of another does not offer her strength. He offers her a mask. And masks, no matter how convincing, eventually fracture. The woman may not even ask for such surrender. Sometimes it is volunteered, an unconscious offering born of fear. He believes transformation will secure affection, yet what he secures is only postponement of rejection. For the feminine intuition senses when a man is bending against his grain. She may smile at first, even indulge in the illusion, but beneath her smile grows unease. If he abandons himself so easily, how could he be trusted to protect anything else? The more he contorts, the less she recognizes him as a man at all. He has become clay without form, substance without spine. The Stoic man understands the danger of this seduction. He recalls the wisdom of Seneca, who warned that the greatest slavery is to be ruled by another's whims. To promise, "I will become what you want," is to kneel before shifting sands. One day her desire points east, the next day west. To chase it is to wander endlessly in the desert of approval, parched and lost. The man who does this becomes a shadow in his own story, an echo in someone else's play. In Jungian terms, he has abandoned individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole, for the fleeting comfort of being liked. Instead, the Stoic man embodies constancy. He can adapt, yes, but adaptation is not abandonment. He listens, learns, grows, but the core remains unshaken. His principles are the bedrock on which he builds. They are not bargaining chips. When challenged, he does not rush to mold himself into her reflection. He stands in dialogue, unafraid to reveal difference, unafraid to let silence hold what words cannot reconcile. This steadiness may frustrate the woman who seeks domination, but it calms the one who seeks partnership. for she senses that his no is not rejection, but a declaration that his essence is non-negotiable. Consider the archetype of the warrior. On the battlefield, the warrior does not abandon his training at the shout of an enemy. He does not drop his shield because another finds it inconvenient. He knows that to survive, he must remain true to his discipline. In love, the Stoic man carries the same wisdom. His shield is his self-command. His sword is clarity. His armor is integrity. To discard these is not romance, but ruin. And though the modern world may dress compromise as virtue, he knows that some compromises cost too much. They cost the soul itself. You, hearing this, must ask yourself, how many times have you felt the pull to offer such words? How many times have you promised transformation, not from conviction, but from fear of loss? And did it not leave you diminished, even if the other stayed for a while longer? The truth is simple. To surrender your being is not to win her heart, but to lose your own. No love built on self-erasure can endure, for what is loved is not the real you, but the ghost of who she wanted you to be in that moment. A Stoic man knows that the right woman is not found through disguise. She is drawn by the resonance of authenticity, by the gravitational pull of a man who knows himself. He does not audition for affection. He reveals his essence and allows the choice to rest with her. If she turns away, he does not chase with promises of reinvention. If she draws near, it is because she recognizes the rare strength of one who cannot be bent into falsehood. His life becomes proof that true connection is not forged in the fire of self-abandonment, but in the meeting of two who remain whole. Thus, the second thing Stoic men never say to women is any vow to become someone else for the sake of affection. It is the language of men who fear themselves unworthy. The Stoic knows that worth is not begged into being by changing shape. It is discovered in the steadfast refusal to betray the self. In that refusal lies a paradoxical freedom. He may lose her, but he never loses himself. And the man who refuses to lose himself in the end is the one most deeply desired. There is a third utterance a Stoic man never allows to pass his lips. It's your fault that I feel this way. At first, it may seem a small thing, a passing flare of frustration, a momentary loss of control. Yet hidden within it is the abdication of sovereignty. To claim that another is the source of one's emotional storm is to surrender command of the inner citadel, to hand the keys of one's state of being to someone else. The ordinary man does this often. Anger rises, shame pricks, insecurity gnaws, and rather than turn inward to confront the restless shadows, he projects them outward. He points at her, at life, at fate, and says, "See what you've done to me." But what has he really confessed? That he is governed not by principle, but by impulse, not by reason, but by reaction. In that moment, he becomes a leaf tossed by the wind, blaming the wind for his flight rather than recognizing his own weightlessness. The Stoic man, however, has studied the winds of the soul. He knows that storms arise not from without, but from within. Seneca taught that events do not disturb us, our judgments about them do. Epictetus reminded his students that power lies in distinguishing what is within our control from what is not. To say, "You made me feel this way," is to blur that line and to live as a slave to externals. The Stoic refuses such slavery. He names his emotions honestly, but he does not assign them to another. He accepts that his rage, his longing, his despair are his to govern. In relationships, this distinction is vital. A woman may admire passion, but she does not admire blame disguised as passion. When he lashes out and pins his turmoil on her shoulders, he transforms her from partner into scapegoat. The weight of his unexamined shadow becomes hers to carry, and eventually she will cast it off. Yet when he owns his storms, when he says with presence, "I am wrestling with myself, and I will not cast this burden onto you," she feels in him not weakness, but strength. It is the mark of a man who does not confuse intimacy with abdication. This is not coldness. The Stoic is not a statue unfeeling, but a man who feels deeply without drowning in his feelings. He can speak of sadness, but he does not accuse. He can confess vulnerability, but he does not weaponize it. He holds his inner weather as a sea captain holds the helm, steady even when waves crash, guiding without demanding the sky clear on command. And the woman beside him feels safer in that steadiness than she ever would in the tempest of blame. Consider the archetype of the shadow in Jungian thought. All that we reject in ourselves, we tend to project onto others. The insecure man, unable to face his own inadequacy, says to her, "You make me feel small." But it is not her presence that shrinks him. It is his refusal to claim his own unfinished self. The Stoic man does the opposite. He turns inward, faces the shadow, and integrates it. He does not accuse her of casting darkness. He illuminates the darkness within himself. And in that illumination, he becomes more whole, more trustworthy, more magnetic. You must recognize the paradox. The more a man blames others for his emotions, the more powerless he becomes. The more he owns them, the more powerful he feels. A woman instinctively senses this difference. One man's words weigh her down with accusation. The other's words lift her with clarity. The first breeds resentment, the second invites respect. The line between the two is not subtle. It is the line between dependence and sovereignty. Thus, the third thing Stoic men never say is any phrase that shifts responsibility for their inner state onto a woman. For to do so is to reveal that one has not yet learned the essence of mastery, that no one controls the fortress of the soul unless we open the gates. And the gates of a Stoic man remain guarded, not closed to love, but closed to blame. He invites her presence, but he does not outsource his peace. There is a fourth phrase that never passes the lips of a Stoic man, though it slips easily from the mouths of many. "You complete me." At first glance, it sparkles with romance, gilded by countless songs and stories. Yet beneath the shimmer hides a subtle admission of incompleteness, a declaration that one is half a person until another fills the void. To speak these words is to confess not love, but lack. The ordinary man, swayed by the myth of perfect halves, believes himself broken until joined. He sees in her not a partner, but a missing fragment, and so he binds himself with the invisible cords of dependency. Each glance, each embrace, each approval becomes not a gift, but a necessity. And when necessity fuels attachment, fear follows close behind, the fear that without her, he will collapse into nothingness. The Stoic man rejects this illusion. He knows that love is not completion, but communion. He does not search for a woman to fix his fractures, but to walk alongside him in wholeness. Jung spoke of individuation, the sacred journey of becoming whole within oneself. To place the burden of completion on another is to abdicate that journey. It turns love into a desperate transaction. Stay with me, or I cease to be. But true intimacy cannot flourish on the soil of fear. Consider how fragile such dependency appears when tested. The man who proclaims, "You complete me," trembles when she withdraws even slightly. a delayed message, a night apart, a distracted mood. Each feels like a crack in the foundation of his identity. He spirals, questions, accuses, clings. To her, his love becomes less a gift and more a weight, pressing upon her shoulders with demands she never agreed to carry. What was meant to sound romantic now feels suffocating. By contrast, the Stoic man arrives already whole. He greets her not as rescuer, but as equal. His solitude has forged him. His silence has taught him. He does not fear the empty room or the long night, for he has faced himself and found sufficiency. When he opens his arms to her, it is not because he is incomplete, but because he has more than enough to share. This shift is subtle, yet seismic. She feels it in the steadiness of his presence, in the way he does not grasp or cling, in the way his love flows from abundance, not from need. The archetypal image here is of the king on his throne. A king does not beg a queen to complete his reign. His kingdom is already established. Yet when she enters, she brings grace, alliance, and the deepening of legacy. The Stoic man is such a king, not arrogant, not self-sufficient to the point of isolation, but sovereign in himself. His worth is not contingent, his peace not negotiable. And so his union with her becomes a celebration, not a salvation. Ask yourself, how often have men mistaken dependence for devotion? How often have women recoiled, not from love, but from the invisible plea hidden inside it? Without you, I am nothing. The truth is stark. The more a man insists that another completes him, the more she feels he is unfinished, and who truly wishes to carry the weight of completing another's soul. The Stoic man never utters these words because he knows their poison. He knows that the highest form of love is not two halves fusing into a whole, but two wholes choosing to walk together. He does not diminish himself to elevate her. He elevates her by standing complete. In his gaze, she is not a missing piece, but a radiant equal. And in that recognition, she finds what she secretly longs for. Not a man who clings, but a man who stands. Thus, the fourth thing Stoic men never say is any phrase that declares incompleteness without a woman. For such words are not romance, but surrender of self. The Stoic's love does not ask her to complete him. It invites her to share in the richness of a life already whole. And this, paradoxically, is what makes his presence irresistible. There is a fifth phrase a Stoic man never speaks, though many men stumble into it when pressed by fear. Without you, I am nothing. On the surface, it mimics devotion, but at its root, it is despair. For to declare such words is to renounce sovereignty, to dissolve the self into another's shadow. It is not love, it is surrender of identity. The average man utters this when gripped by panic, when the thought of abandonment gnaws at his chest. He believes such words prove passion, but to the discerning ear, they reveal dependence. A woman may feel pity, but never deep respect. For how can she admire a man who proclaims his own emptiness? How can she lean upon someone who confesses he cannot stand without her? Such declarations, meant to bind, instead corrode the bond. The Stoic man knows the peril. He understands that to place the weight of one's existence upon another is to make her responsible for carrying both lives. This is not love. It is burden disguised as sentiment. True love does not demand the other sustain one's being. It offers presence, companionship, and strength from a place of fullness. The Stoic does not say, "Without you, I am nothing." He lives in such a way that, even if she departs, his life remains meaningful. His worth is not a lone contingent on her affection. It is a possession he guards within himself. In Jungian terms, the man who proclaims emptiness is still trapped in projection. He has not met the depths of his shadow, has not reconciled with the unloved parts of himself. Instead, he casts his unlived life onto her, demanding she carry both his anima and his purpose. But she cannot, and eventually she will recoil, not from him, but from the crushing weight of his need. The Stoic, by contrast, has done the work. He has sat in silence with his wounds, faced the abyss of loneliness, and found that he remains whole. This wholeness is what makes him desirable, not desperate. Think of Marcus Aurelius, who reminded himself that a man's worth is not decided by the applause of others, but by the integrity of his own mind. The Stoic man lives this truth. His devotion is not fueled by need, but by choice. When he loves, it is not because he cannot survive alone, but because he wishes to share a life already rich in meaning. And that love, rooted in freedom, feels far more powerful than dependence ever could. To a woman, such steadiness is magnetic. She feels not the clutch of desperation, but the embrace of presence. She knows he will not vanish into her, nor collapse when storms come. His love becomes a sanctuary, not a cage. She may walk beside him, but she is never asked to carry him. And because she senses this, she rests more easily in his presence. Thus, the fifth thing Stoic men never say to women is any confession that their being dissolves without her. For these words strip love of its nobility and transform it into chains. The Stoic man knows better. His existence is complete, his essence intact. He offers not emptiness in need of filling, but abundance in need of sharing. And in that offering, love flourishes, not as dependency, but as choice. The circle closes here. The 5 unsaid things are not merely phrases withheld. They are truths that shape the essence of a man who governs himself. He does not beg. He does not erase himself. He does not blame. He does not dissolve. He remains whole, steady, and sovereign. And in that sovereignty, he becomes the paradox. The man who needs nothing is the man most deeply desired. The woman who encounters him feels it instantly. The rare gravity of one who cannot be swayed by pleading, who cannot be reshaped by whim, who does not outsource his storms. She sees in him the quiet majesty of one who knows his worth. And in her heart, she understands. Here is a man who will not chase, because he does not need to. Here is a man who, even in love, remains free.